Welcome to the Golden Hours. I hope you've enjoyed this series so far. I've got a couple more interviews lined up, and I'm kind of trying to decide where I sort of want to end this series because I know it's approaching soon. I know it was never going to be this ongoing series. There was just a plethora of subjects I wanted to tackle with different aspects of filmmaking and writing, and we're sort of nearing the end of that goal. And I feel very proud of the information I've been able to receive and share. And so if you're on YouTube and you're not subscribed to my Patreon page, please consider that, because you're missing out on a whole lot of really valuable information, especially if writing and getting into the film industry is something you're interested in. Today, I wanted to speak more into my personal projects and what I'm learning, what I'm getting out of it from firsthand experience. And if you don't know already, I am writing a book. It is a science fiction fantasy epic that is essentially the story of Moses and the Israelites if they came from another planet. And I've been working on this book for almost 8 years, and I feel like in that process I've picked up a lot of knowledge and tricks of the trade, and really just just an experience level that I would love to be able to pass on to anybody who's writing their first book. And really, the first thing I want to start with is world building. I loved world building. I still do. I still find myself messing around with some of the world building aspects of my story. I think it's always shifting. As I write the actual story, the world building kind of shifts along with it. But I spent about 5-6 years just world building. I was building planets and cultures and characters and history and different affiliations and the good guys, the bad guys, the people in between, languages. I was conceptualizing everything and writing them down. I even did a couple of sketches, and it just sort of took over. It became everything that was the book that I was working on. I didn't think about story at all for most of that time. And looking back, I probably would have invested more time with story and world build. Like, I would have tried to do like 50-50. I'm spending half my time world building and the other half writing and figuring out the story and what I actually want to accomplish. That's not to say that what I was doing was wrong, because ultimately I'm really proud of where I currently am as I've been writing. But I just noticed this addiction to world building. I couldn't stop. Like, it was just all I wanted to do. And I started going online, and turns out it's pretty common for science fiction fantasy writers is what's called world building sickness. And I just kind of got lost in the world that I created, and I just wanted to keep discovering it. And I just never got to the whole reason I was writing to begin with, which was writing. And so I kind of reached a point after about 5 or 6 years where I was like, all right, enough. It's time to actually write this story and figure out what I actually want to communicate. And that's where I really started to, that's where the fun shifted. It didn't stop being fun. In many ways, it became more fulfilling and more fun than the world building part of it. But what I did notice is that once I started writing, suddenly I was entering a relationship. I was discovering myself as I was writing, just as much as I was discovering the story. And anytime you're sort of in a creative space where you're confronting yourself, it becomes kind of sobering. You're kind of shining a spotlight on things that you have to work on in yourself as you're writing arcs for your characters, you know? We've talked a lot on previous episodes of the Golden Hours how a story is, at its core, a character choosing to either run away from their strength or running towards it. They're either clinging to their flaw or they're letting it go and moving towards their strength. And a lot of that depends on your ability to write that. Honestly, depends a lot on your mental and emotional health. And I don't want to say any absolutes, but at the same time, if you're writing a narrative, you kind of have to be grounded in some sort of morality, because ultimately you're selling a concept, you're selling a theme or a philosophical conflict to an audience, to a general audience, and in order to sort of get them on board with your art, it's got to be grounded in something generally accepted, or at least a concept that you can pitch to people with reasonable effort. And it's tough if you're mentally and emotionally unhealthy. I think you end up with a very different kind of art if you're coming from a place of instability and insecurity. I mean, you look at some iconic paintings from the Renaissance period of people who were not mentally healthy or emotionally healthy, and the art speaks profoundly about their lives. But if your goal is to actually communicate a profound message or a philosophical conflict or statement of some sort, you kind of have to be grounded in something foundational. And I discovered that dynamic as I was writing the story. It's like, holy crap, I really need to get my life together if I'm going to write this particular story. And the reason I felt that way about this particular story is because the story is heavily influenced by the Bible. Like I said, it's Moses and the Israelites if they came from another planet. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the biblical narrative and I am retelling the story of the Bible through a science fiction fantasy lens. The Bible narrative is Hebrew literature, and it's also meditative literature. So you're essentially hearing the same archetypal cycle over and over the course of 3,000 years. And so what my story is doing, it's called the Lodestar Manifest. And essentially what the Lodestar Manifest does is it says, okay, here is the narrative cycle that is constantly repeating through the biblical narrative. You have the main character, the protagonist, you have this archetype, this archetype, this archetype, this archetype, and they go through this thing, then they go through that thing, they confront this issue, and they resolve it by doing this. And what I essentially did was I said, all right, here is every single time that narrative cycle occurs in the Bible, and I'm going to take every single character, every single archetype from that cycle, and I'm basically going to combine it all into one massive story. So what you end up with is very complex characters. I'm essentially taking the character of Adam, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David, Solomon, Samson, Jesus. I'm taking all of those characters and I'm combining them into one single character. Noah and Moses and all those guys. And what you end up with is very screwed up characters, very flawed, very interesting and compelling characters who go through incredibly difficult things. And what it required of me is I need to understand the Bible, and I need to understand the core message of the Bible if I'm going to adapt it and retell it in this sort of science fiction lens. And so I guess where I'm coming from is writing is incredible and it's fulfilling and it's fun, but it's also therapy. Like, I'm having to confront things about myself that I never expected to confront. And it's sobering and it's work, but it's so purposeful, it's so fulfilling. And I've been having a blast with that. Another aspect of writing this book that has honestly been so useful in just helping me craft the feeling and the depth that I was really hoping to accomplish in this book is, funny enough, ChatGPT. Now, I know what you might be thinking is, you're seriously using artificial intelligence to write your book. And no, I'm not. Every word that's written in this book is exactly how I've written it, how I've wanted it to feel and to come across. My hands are in every aspect of this story, and there's never a point where I'm using artificial intelligence to tell my story for me. I believe that artificial intelligence, like any other software or any sort of hardware, equipment, or whatever, I think it's all a tool, and a good artist is going to use those tools wisely. And there are plenty of areas that I feel very capable of doing with authority. I feel pretty strongly that I understand the science fiction genre. I feel very strongly that I understand Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey and different types of mythologies and Hebrew literature. So from those things, I feel very confident about writing with authority. But there are other areas that I feel weak in, that I'm getting better at with each time that I sit down to write, and that is Old English. There's a certain cadence, there's a certain style, word of phrasing that happens in Old English that I'm very familiar with, but not familiar enough with that I feel like I could write with authority. And so what I've been doing is, okay, I want this book to read like Old English. I want it to feel like ancient literature that you've stumbled upon, and you're opening up this ancient text about another universe. And I want it to feel like you're reading something ancient. And so what I've done is I've written my story in the best form of Old English that I can. And then what I'll do is I'll feed the story to ChatGPT and say, hey, can you give me a variation of this draft that I've written and show me how to write this in proper Old English. And then ChatGPT will show me. It's like, hey, take this word and switch it to one of these words, or like, here's how I would execute this phrase. And so I'm reading those notes. I'm like, okay, I'll try it that way. And it's been so useful. It's been teaching me how to sort of capture that feeling, that Old English, that ancient text feeling. And another area that ChatGPT has really helped me with that I could never have done on my own is crafting a history. This has really nothing to do with the story. This has more to do with world building. And by no means am I a historian. I enjoy history. I think it's fun and I think it's cool. But I couldn't tell you, like I couldn't walk you through world history, or let alone speak or write with any authority. But I was very quickly realizing that at the scale that this story is, this grand fantasy epic that this book is, I need a context for a lot of these cultures. I need a context surrounding what my protagonist is coming from, where he's coming from, why he sees certain people a certain way, and why he sees another people a certain way. I want to be able to craft a historical context around those things. And this isn't going to be the case for every writer and every book that they're writing, but I wanted that for this book. And so, and yes, I can sort of write and world build as I'm writing, and there can be sort of this expository thing that takes place. And I had a pretty good idea of what major historical events preceded my character's circumstances, but I really wanted to lay that groundwork. I really wanted to be able to have that history laid out so that I'm writing with a certain historical context in my head right off the bat. And I'm not sitting there having to think, I wonder why these people are this way. It's like, no, I've already thought about this. I've already written it down. But the reality is, I'm not a historian. I'm not going to be an expert on how humans have behaved over the course of thousands of years. And I wanted to be able to capture that with excellence, or at least the best ability that I can. And so what I did with ChatGPT was, I said, hey, I have a story where this particular event happens within the history of this alien race. And I would like to know, ChatGPT, if there is a moment in history where an entire kingdom falls into civil war because of a political marriage gone wrong. And ChatGPT, sure enough, comes up with multiple examples of kingdoms that fell into civil war because of a political marriage gone wrong. And so I was able to read about those historical events that happened on our planet and be like, oh, interesting, that's how that played out. Here are all the commonalities between these different historical events. And like, wow, it seems as though if this goes wrong, then, this is how these things tend to play out in history. I'm going to emulate that in my writing as well. And so what I ended up doing within a couple of hours is writing a massive world history for one of my planets. And I'm just thinking to myself, man, if I could put together a world history for one planet in a couple of hours, that's a whole series of extracurricular books that I could write around my science fiction fantasy epic, is a world history of this planet. Or I could just do it across the whole planetary system, a planetary system history, a full history of the Lodestar Manifest and its historical context. Like, that's an entire book that I could basically write and then turn around and sell as a product. And so my mind's just thinking, like, man, I have to use AI as a tool, but I'm recognizing the benefit and the limitations and the distance that it can take me if I'm using it wisely. And that was a really cool, very valuable experience. And so I would say, if you're kind of in that world building point of your story, don't be afraid of using the tools that you have at your disposal. Don't overuse the tools. Like, I think you should be incorporating your ideas and your concepts and your creative efforts as much as you possibly can, because it's yours. But at the same time, if AI can carry you where you're weaker, absolutely do that, because I think your book is only as strong as your weakest link. And I know for me, my weakest links is going to be my lack of intelligence around history or around writing prose. I definitely am more of a script writer than I am a book writer, and there's a big difference between how you write a movie script and how you write a book. And being able to sit down and ask ChatGPT for notes on how to write a certain type of sequence, or even just picking up a book and just reading, okay, like, here's how they write a fight scene here, here's how they write a dialogue sequence here. I'm just looking at the tools that I have around me, and it's really helped me step up my game and be strong where I normally would be weaker. And AI ironically, has been a huge help in accomplishing that. So that's something those are a couple of things that I picked up along the way of, just the process of writing this book that's been very dear to my heart. And as far as an update goes, I'm currently 17 chapters into my book. I've already sort of mapped out a structure. I know there's going to be 100 chapters total. I basically have all of the story beats mapped out, and I purposefully wanted there to be sort of a symmetry. So I've got 100 chapters planned out. I'm currently starting chapter 17 tomorrow morning, and so far I feel really good about the things that I'm writing. I feel very happy with all of it. It's been very important to me that I capture the sort of archaic biblical feelings of the story without it being preachy. I don't think preaching should be in any story or movie or book that you're telling. I think you should be coming from a place of, I want to entertain people. I want to get people to think about their lives in a certain way that's not agenda driven. Even if, the agenda is, more noble, I just don't think it belongs in art. I think art should be thought-provoking and entertaining. And so that's sort of been on the forefront of my mind, and trying to needle that thread and find that balance between telling a really cool story and proposing really cool ideas and concepts and philosophies without it feeling preachy, without it feeling like a Christian story, because it's not. I would not say this is a Christian book. It's just inspired by Hebrew literature from the Bible, which personally, the Bible is the greatest book ever written, and I'll die on that hill. But it's been a thrill, and it's been incredible. If you want to see official concept art that Rick Hertel has been developing for me, and if you want to check out various updates on the books, specifically like sort of the nitty-gritty stuff, or if you want to read the book, I'm literally putting drafts of the book on my Patreon. So if you want to see, like, tangibly, if you want to check out the official concept art for the Lodestar Manifest, go to my Patreon, sign up for that. There's a 7-day free trial, so there really isn't any excuse for why you want to be on there. And when we get to a close on the golden hours, that's really gonna be where I spend most of my time posting content, is stuff surrounding the Lodestar Manifest, and all the concept art and progress updates and beta reading opportunities and things like that. And also I've got some film/video projects that I'm getting involved with, and so every once in a while you'll get some sort of update on a film or a video that I'm working on. But for the most part, my Patreon page is going to be where you get to experience the Lodestar Manifest and get a taste of what that world is, and what the book is going to be before it's out there, before it's published, before any of that stuff. You get to be part of the fellowship that says, I experienced the world of the Lodestar Manifest before anybody else did. And I got to see the concept art before anybody else did. And so if that interests you, check it out on Patreon, experience the 7-day free trial for any of the tiers. Yeah, we'll see you next time on The Golden Hours with Zach Golden.